Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a special called workshop of the Commissioners Court of Hood County, Texas. Today is Thursday, June 29, 2023. It's 9 a.m. and we're in the Ralph H. Walton Jr. Justice Center, Central Jury Room, 1200 West Pearl Street, Granbury, Texas. So we don't have anybody here to do the invocation here this morning, so.
Barnett.
In the back.
Yeah. Oh, come on up here then. Judge Barnett, you going to lead us?
Lord, we thank you this morning for all of us being able to be here and being healthy, and we pray for the ones who are not healthy and that they give us peace and guidance through our jobs and lead the county and the people as we should, the way you will for us to do. Not the way we may see that it need to be run, but the way you will for it to be ran, so that each individual person in this county receives a blessing from you in whatever way you see fit. And Jesus, we give you the praise and the glory and the honor for everything. Because of you, we are here and no other reason. And we pray that we continue to lead this county and these people as you will for us too, so that your message is received fully and everybody is blessed. And thank you for this time. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
If you would please join me in the pledge to the United States. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the great state of Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Hey. All right. The subject of this workshop here today is to discuss the 2023 budget with a specific focus on staffing levels and employee health benefits. All aspects of the budget may be discussed, and the meeting may adjourn into executive session if necessary, as authorized by the Texas Government Code 551.074 for personnel matters. No action will be taken from this meeting. Okay. I guess you wanted to call this, didn't you, Commissioner?
Yes, sir. Well, we've got 29 new positions requested, and we've got to figure out how many employees we've got to enroll in our health insurance by what, July 6th, I believe, is our cutoff on that. So we've got to get some direction as to how many employees we need to enroll on that health insurance plan. I think 29 is that's a pretty daunting number, and I don't think we're going to be able to get there. Just looking at last year's budget was approximately $25 million ad valorem. Before we go to the rollback election, the maximum we can go up is $750,000, and we've already obligated some of that. So, we've got to figure out where we can make some cuts. We can't get 29 new employees. We've got to figure out where we can, what we can trim this number down. So, that.
What is so when we do payroll, we get the payroll back up for court every 2 weeks or every court. The number of employees on there is not really consistent with the two numbers that you provided, 310 for current and 325. So how many employees are on the payroll, not counting part-time?
Sure. When you look at the number of 317, that is an average of employees who have been on the medical insurance. Now, last year when we figured the budget, we were given an estimate of 310. So that's what we budgeted off of. Obviously, we under budgeted by 7 employees. Now, the fact that some employees never even work long enough to start their benefits, or they're not here, we have unfilled positions. So that is what's helping us have plenty of money to get through the rest of the fiscal year. However, I don't want to figure insurance on 320 employees, and yet I'm told we're going to hire 30 extra positions, because then we have not budgeted enough for our medical insurance. Granted, we're always going to have those employees who don't even stay long enough to start their benefits. We're always going to have positions that are not filled, but it's just not a number that I feel comfortable with right now as far as estimating the cost for the medical insurance. So on average, it's $317 based off of our billing.
Okay, and part-time is or isn't eligible for
They
medical?
are not.
Okay.
But those numbers you see in payroll,
That includes-
they are visiting judges, court reporters, part-time, and then full-time employees.
Okay. And what is the impact of being wrong if we were to say 317 and we ended up with an average of 325?
Probably not a lot. 317 to 325, probably not a ton. We'd probably, if at the end of the year we did need some money, bring it to court, ask to have money moved into that budget code. That's not a huge difference, 317 to 325. But again, I'm not even sure 325 is a good number, based off of what I'm hearing.
So what you're asking is, because we have to, I just want to make sure
Sure.
everyone understands, because we have to budget up front, because the county pays for employee medical, we have
Correct.
to budget up front during this process the amount of money to cover the entire year for medical.
That's
It has
correct.
to be in the budget.
That is
So that we can
correct.
pay it we pay it month by month or
We
payroll
do.
by payroll.
Yes.
So we have to allocate the money now to cover the entire year.
Correct.
Okay.
I do have Jonathan Collender here this morning. You all have seen the options that are available. He is here to answer any questions that you may have that I may not be able to answer. I know that there's 2 options on there besides the current plan renewal. You may have questions about those that Jonathan may need to answer for you, because like you said, Commissioner Andrews, come July 6th, I have to have a plan submitted. There's a process after we submit it that TAC has to do, and then, of course, we have to get a process started to get through open enrollment and get all of our employees signed up and changes made.
Okay. Well, you want to come up here and explain the options to us? I mean, there's 2 options, and I think it's pretty,
So if you were to renew with the same plan that you have now, the employee-only rate would be that $842.48. So we went and we drew up a couple of alternate plans. So option 1 is similar to the plan that you have now, except it increases the deductible to $5,000 versus the $4,000 where it's at now. And then it does increase the emergency room copay up to $500. I want to stress that that emergency room copay is waived if the patient's admitted. So if it is a true emergency and they are admitted into the hospital, they won't also have that $500 to pay. Option 2 is our HMO option. So it is an HMO option that's similar to the plan that you have now, except it does bring down the deductible a little bit, and it brings down the specialist copay as well. So it's an HMO. It's the Blue Essentials HMO through Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The network is pretty good out here. There aren't a lot of providers that are not in that network, but it is an HMO. So there is, some of you have historical knowledge of older HMOs, or you may have been familiar with HMOs that didn't work as well in the past. This is a better product. Really, the only difference between that and the PPO is that everyone would need to have a primary care physician selected, and they would have to get referrals for specialists. So that's kind of the differences there. So we are able to bring the rate down a little bit more if we were to go with that HMO. But happy to answer questions about anything specific that we have here on the plans.
There is, in talking to people, there is a pretty negative connotation out there about the HMO, but it seems more and more plans, I know the state has gone that way,
Right, the
school
state,
district.
the TRS, absolutely. I come from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I've been with TAC for about 2 years. I was with Blue Cross for about 15 before that. I had a director at Blue Cross that used to say that HMO is still a 4-letter word in Texas. That was always his joke about it. But no, you're absolutely correct. So, right, the state of Texas, the ERS system and the TRS system both use this network. So you've got folks in your community that are already on this network. The benefits are going to be different, based on the plan that we're selecting, but they are already using it. They've used it for a couple of years. I was on that TRS team at Blue Cross back when that was implemented in, and we had some hiccups initially with just providers not understanding that they were in the network. Part of what we're battling with that HMO as well is back when the Affordable Care Act came out, there was a different Blue Cross HMO that would basically allow folks to be past due for a couple of months, and then doctors weren't getting paid because they were basically having members that weren't paying their bills, and then doctors weren't getting checks. So it took a little bit of that to explain that, no, this isn't the same one. These are, it's fully insured through, or, self-funded through the employer. It's not, you're not counting on, Joe Smith to pay his deductible, pay his premium every month. So that's helped a little bit. And a lot of those road bumps have kind of been worked out just with ERS and TRS joining over, TRS about 3 years ago, ERS about 5 years ago.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. That's, like I said, I have gotten some kind of negative feedback, and I just wanted
Well, and one of those things too is not a lot of employers still contribute to their employers' health insurance. So it's a great thing, it's a great benefit to offer that you do offer that, contributions towards the health insurance. What I've told other groups that have been apprehensive about moving to that type of plan is, it's a good way to say that we're not changing your deductible. In fact, it's going down. We're not asking you to pay anything more. We're not asking you to contribute more. What we're asking you is to get a primary care physician and to get referrals for a specialist. So, with that framing and understanding that, the county needs to try to keep, rates reasonably low, that's helped out in a couple of the other counties that we've implemented. So counties near here that have that, Wise County has it. A little further east, Hopkins and Fannin County have both joined this plan in the last couple of years.
Just comparing the current year with, if we stayed on the same plan, the 842 that you mentioned, and that's $842 a month that the county is contributing to health insurance coverage per employee, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So from 782 to 842, if I did the math right, is a 7.6% increase. If we were to go with option 2, which is the increased deductible and emergency copay, 816, that would be a 4.3% increase. And then the HMO is 3.1% increase. And that's what the county contributes each payroll for each employee.
That's correct, right?
That is correct.
Complete.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wasn't sure on the contribution rate.
One concern I have, if we were to, go with option 2, most of the employees have their own primary or doctor already, and I'm not sure how many participating HMO physicians and/or specialists go without imposing additional drive time to the employees, into Fort Worth or, other places even. I mean,
Right.
that's
No.
a big concern.
So that's a valid concern. I will say we do a disruption report. We get that from Blue Cross. I believe Melissa has that, and she can send that over to you all so you can see which providers are in the network and which are not. I don't believe that any primary care physicians in the area are not participating in that network. I believe that match was pretty even. What we typically see, the difference between that and the PPO network, are ancillary providers. So a chiropractor, here and there, a pain management provider, but primary care physicians, I wouldn't have even brought it to Hood County. If your doctors weren't in the network, it wouldn't have made sense to try to have y'all go on to that type of plan. But I'm happy to share that report with the court so you can see exactly which providers are in network and out of network.
So just using the renewal rate of 842, if we did add an additional 29 employees, that would be almost $300,000 a year in cost for the medical plan. Okay.
Yeah, I think that it's, on the sheet we've given, it was for 325, which is an increase over what we had last year. So.
You know, depending on how many employees you add, I will check with our underwriting team to see if that might bring the rate down a little bit. It wouldn't be substantial, you know, maybe 0.5% if anything, but I can check to see if you are looking to add employees. That is something we take into account, how many employees that you have.
Gotcha, yeah.
Hey, Becky, I got a question. If we just budgeted right now for whatever, 30, and then we end up, let's just say hypothetically, we don't add any employees at the end of the day, but we budget for 30 right now, and we're going to have money left over in the budget. I mean, we're not going to be paying for that, correct?
Oh, no, you pay as you go. You're billed per employee, so no, you don't pay up front for someone.
So that would create a surplus in that account?
Yes, sir.
And where would, can that go right back into the general fund?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You won't lose any money. It's going to be hard to come up with everything that is in the budget for 24 right now, which everybody knows. We're just going to have to, as some of you like to say, sharpen your pencils.
We're at what, 3.3 million in increased requests in the budget, and yeah, so
That's just salary, not including benefits.
No, that's benefits.
Okay. Fully loaded salaries? Salaries, taxes, everything that goes with retirement? Okay.
well, thank you for coming out, and
I'm happy to, and I'm available as needed. You know, I'm going to be out a little bit next week. Well, I'll make sure that you've
Okay.
got backup information for me, but, you know, we appreciate your relationship with us and TAC, and, you know, I told y'all last time, Melissa does a great job advocating on behalf of y'all's folks, so it's a
agree
pleasure
with
to work
that.
with her.
yeah, so.
Are there some employees that don't choose our medical plan?
Yes, we do have employees who waive our plan.
Typically, it's going to be retired military, or if they're retired from some law enforcement that maybe has a, you know, different plan that they don't have to contribute anything towards.
Okay.
Or employees who are 65, eligible for Medicare. I always stress to those employees, you need to look at our plan. We do have a fairly high deductible versus what plans are out there. You may find, depending on
Right.
your health, which plan is best for
So
those
that's kind of where
employees.
I'm at right this, you know, today is whether or not I, you know, continue with the Blue Cross in my case, or I go back on Medicare, which I got off Medicare Part A, you know, when I, you know, took office. So that's, you know, I mean, I'm not the only one in that, you know, position either. So there's, you know, and you got to balance it out which way it's going to be better overall.
Right. I get asked that quite a bit, if they should stay with the county's insurance or go with Medicare, and it's a personal question. You know, I recommend just looking at the options, making sure your provider's in the Medicare supplement plan that you're going to go with, or, you know, just weighing all of that. But it is a personal decision to
Right.
weigh that option.
And it's almost, in my case, you know, as an example, it's almost equal. You know, so it really is.
A lot of times, it comes out pretty similar.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it just a small percentage of employees that don't choose our plan? Do
It
you
is a small percentage, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like 10 people, or do you know?
I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head. I would say at least 10
Okay.
probably do. a lot depends on, like I said, the deductible and the health of those employees and what else is available to them. You know, we do have some that actually waive ours and stay on their spouse's plan because they feel that plan is better. So, yeah, I would say at least 10 waive our plan, but I'd be
Okay.
mistaken if I gave you an exact number.
One thing in looking at the option, like I say, if we were to go with option 1, the 3318, if we go with that, the minimum hourly rate that the county pays for hourly employees is $14.42. And the maximum hourly rate that the county pays for the court reporter, the maximum is $54.57, that's court reporters. But the average hourly rate for the clerical staff is $24.91. And so, you know, if we, regardless of what kind of a raise we give the hourly employees, if we don't fully fund, if we go with option 1 and we don't fully fund it, you know, we're taking back part of that raise from them, you know, right off the bat. Because that 3318 is a monthly increase out of their pocket. And so, from my perspective, if we were to go to option 1, I would suggest that the county, you know, covers that entire $816.16 per employee, regardless of where we end up number-wise. Because otherwise we're taking money back out of their pocket that we just, you know, that we're going to possibly give them come October 1.
That is correct. That is, on an average, our hourly rates.
Right.
Yes. One thing I do want to say about the HMO, I don't actually have a disruption report, but Jonathan and I have discussed what type of effect would it have on our employees. And Jonathan said only about 1%, if not even 1%, might see a change in who they're referred to. He stated all of the doctors that we're currently using are in the HMO, but who they refer you to, and I think it mainly applies to chiropractors, might have to change because those particular chiropractors do not participate in the HMO. So that is, I mean, that gives you an average of what kind of disruption we would see is maybe less than 1%. But no doubt an HMO puts the burden on the employee or on the patient, whomever's covered, because they will have to get a family doctor or practitioner. Me, for one, I don't have one. I would definitely have to get a doctor that I can go to, and then they refer me to whatever they think I need. And a lot depends on, I assume, the doctor, too,
Sure.
as far as how they work with their patients. You know, can you just call in and get a referral because they're busy and they don't really want to see you? They may refer you to a doctor, but most physicians want that copay.
I have a question. I know that a lot of people use the telemedicine. How does that work with you?
It's a great question. So telemedicine would still be a $0 copay. MD Live, our board approved going forward. Obviously, it could change in another plan year, but it is a $0 copay for telemedicine. And I want to add just a couple of other things with that HMO plan. If Hood County were to go with that plan, Melissa's already got the dates for open enrollment on my calendar. We would come out and do a full information session for your employees. So I would have a book with all of the providers, with their provider numbers, so we can look at that, solve any concerns that we might have ahead of October 1st when that plan became active. And Melissa's right, for folks that maybe don't have a primary care physician, that'll be a little bit of an adjustment. And it does come down to the relationship that you have with your doctor. So we've always talked to the benefits of having a good relationship with a primary care doctor. So for example, I've seen my doctor for the last 10 years. I can call him and say, hey, I've got that ear infection I always get. Can you call in antibiotics? And he'll do that for me. Or I can say, hey, I need a referral to, and this just happened last week, an ENT provider. And, he referred to the one that I heard was the best in Waco, is where I'm from. So it depends on that relationship. And there are doctors that will insist on seeing you before referring you out. A lot of times they can handle some of those things on their own, like diabetes management or OB services and things like that. Another thing to add too is OBGYN providers, there's no referral needed to see those. So you don't have to have them designated in addition to your primary care physician. Your OB can be your primary care physician, but it doesn't have to be, and there's no referral requirements for those providers. It's a lot, I know. A lot to take in.
Oh, yeah, it is, and that's one of the reasons why I was pretty adamant about let's have this now, is there are still some things that we need to go and think through in the next week before we pull the trigger on what plan we're going to go with, so.
And if over the next week you have any questions, Jonathan is always available. If we need to reach out to him, maybe do a conference call with one court member and Jonathan, we can do that. But definitely there's some big decisions to make before next Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your phone number?
I can give you my card if you'd like, absolutely. So I did happen to bring one in. But Melissa's got my contact information as well. My cell's going to be the best way to reach me.
Any other questions for Jonathan?
I don't.
Okay.
Thanks for,
All right.
like I said, thanks for coming up and.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank y'all for having me.
Information.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, I guess the next item is to focus on the staffing levels. Anybody have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think we need to, some of these positions, that's, guess we need to work on where we're going to be at the end of this. Necessarily real sure how to go from here, but
Well, could I say something then?
absolutely.
This is as good a time as any to read something into the record here, and especially with the upcoming weekend. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And that's, as you know, right out of the Declaration of Independence. But I put that out there because the government is here to secure your rights. And we need to keep that in mind when we talk about growing it. And that's all I got to say about that.
I can't hear you, Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, we're just kind of
I just
talking about, do we just go department
could
by
go
department and look at
department
new
from
positions?
the list that the auditor gave us and just go down the list and discuss.
I think some departments that have asked for additional folks are here, and we've heard from a lot of those, and so, yeah, do we just want to do that? Do we need to go into executive session with any particulars, individual personnel matters? I mean, there are a couple that I think I would like to discuss. I don't know. Do we do that first? We do that later? You say first?
Well, it doesn't make any difference to me. Y'all called a special session.
Yes, sir.
You're chomping at the bits there? Judge Howell?
Looking at me?
I was looking at you. I see all the JPs here.
I don't have any staffing things to discuss. My staff, I'm blessed. Whatever gold sold for this morning in Dubai, my girls are worth more than that to me. But I wasn't here for the budget meeting, so I guess I will do my canned speech that I do every year at budget. And that is, I know the pie is only so big. I understand that. But the whole time I've worked at the county, I've watched 5 people sit up here and keep cutting that pie up, and the smallest portion goes to the people that do the most of the work here. Those people that sit behind those computers every day is what makes this county. That's the asset this county has. Everything else this county has is a liability because it's all going to rust or fall apart or go away. So the only asset we have is the good people that work here at the county. And I know we have an excellent benefit plan. We got insurance, we got days off that most people don't have that are paid. It's an excellent benefit package. But Walmart doesn't take your benefit package when you drive that buggy up there to that checkout. And so I'm a little bit tired of single ladies that work here at the county coming and telling me that they have to put their groceries on a credit card and make payment plans on their groceries because their salary is so low. Or that they can't get an apartment because the apartment manager that they applied to say, you got to be kidding, you don't make enough money to live here. So, again, my request is y'all find a place in that pie and y'all make that slice bigger this year. And let those people get paid enough that they can have a standard of living. If you give them a 3% raise, they're still 7% behind what's happened in the economy. So again, I know I say the same thing every year. I didn't get elected to sit up there and do y'all's job. I'm not saying it's not a hard job. I'm just saying you need to pay attention to the people that do the work here every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add, again, what I've already stated, the clerical staff, the average for the clerical staff hourly rate is $24.91 for what they do. And Cotton is exactly correct in his assessment. Those clerical personnel are what make or break this, the county and each of the departments. I will go on record for that.
Judge Kelly, Judge Bartlett, y'all have anything to say?
Nothing really more than I haven't already said and had individual discussions, and I stand behind Judge Howell. I believe that our Staffing, I believe our pay for our clerical workers is behind the 8 ball, and we need to bring it up to par. Discussing with some people the other night, inflation was at 8%. Now they're saying it's just 4%, but yeah, you take 8 plus 4, it equals 12. It didn't go down and then start over again. We're here. And, gallon of milk, $6, $7, carton of eggs, $6, $7. I mean, we're paying these clerks salaries that should have been 10 years ago. We need to find a way. With whatever y'all do, we just need to find a way, because they deserve it. They work very hard for you, for us, and for the citizens. So, like the judge says, realize the pie is only so large, but we need to find a slice. That's all I got to say.
Actually, Judge, if you don't mind, maybe we'll jump a little out of order since you're here. In discussing, you had one of the requests for an additional person there
Yes, I
in
did.
your office, right?
Yes, I did.
And that's based in part on
Speculation.
an increase in truancy and whatever if the schools
Yes, sir.
do follow through with that.
Yes, sir.
And I'm still a little, I'm still a little confused about why all those come to you, and is that just a historical way?
That is a historical event.
Okay.
It goes back to when there were only 2 JPs, okay? When there was just JP 1 and 2 and JP 3 and 4. You had one JP for 1 and 2, one JP for 3 and 4. At the time, I believe Judge Castillo was handling half of it, and the other judge was handling half of it. And there came a point to where it was just a chore to handle it in 2 different courts, because you had schools. Those school administrators have to travel to whatever court that the case is being heard in. So let's just say the high school, for instance. The high school covers the whole county, okay? So let's say we split it up by precincts. So whatever precinct the child lives in. So now, if you did it that way, the school would have to have hearings in 4 JP offices and not just 1. Also, which would be fine for me. I mean, that would take a load off of us, and we could take a breath. Also, the convenience of having the county attorney's office just across the hall. We can go back and forth, because when the cases are filed in our court, they have to go across the hall to the county attorney's office to be approved, okay? We can't go forward with a truancy case till the county attorney's office is, it's good. Let's do it. So it's just a matter of convenience, I guess, is what it was for years, and it's just always been that way. If y'all want to try and figure out a way to split it up, we can try and figure out a way to split it up. It's just going to me personally, it'll just create a larger mess than you already have.
Well, and I think that there's some probably efficiency in dealing with this for it to be in one place. That might be like you said, instead of having multiple hearings all over, just do it all at one time, maybe.
Yeah. The administrators are supposed to be teaching. They're not supposed to be dealing with truancy. So the most efficient way that we can take care of them, to get them back in the school building to be taking care of those children. I would love if it was split up.
Yeah, it's definitely a streamlined approach from the school district's perspective.
Yes,
They
ma'am.
know
Yes,
that
ma'am.
they just, no matter what school it is, where the child lives, where the parents live, I mean, they could be 2 parents could live in different precincts. So from a school administration standpoint, it's definitely streamlined to always know that it's JP2 court, and then your staff is specifically trained to handle the truancy cases.
And that's the other end of the spectrum. Truancy cases are not like your standard debt claim or small claim. It's kind of a special situation. So let's say we, us, y'all, they decided to to separate it out into the different precincts. Now you're going to have someone show these clerks the way the truancies are handled. There's not a notebook. It's always, I mean, the clerks that we have here doing it now have been doing it since day one pretty much, so they know the process. There's no manual that says it has to be handled this in a certain way.
I don't see that as insurmountable. People can be trained.
No, I understand.
To me, the benefit is to the school district, that they are, they know that they just
I don't
need to.
disagree. I
So,
don't, yeah, I don't disagree.
if we
It's just like
just-
it's just like someone said the other day, if all the cases had been spread out into the other JP courts, and I said, yeah, that would have been great, because I wouldn't have had any.
Yeah.
You
So I
know.
guess one of the things we should decide is, does it make sense for the county from a budget standpoint and efficiency standpoint to have it dispersed? Or is it being streamlined for the school district, also make it streamlined for the county so that we are in effect saving time and money also? So.
And I've had this discussion with one or two of y'all. We don't choose where they file. They do. It's just like a small claim, just like a debt claim. They choose where they file the cases. We can't tell them where to file the cases. So we would have to create some way to legally disperse these cases. I mean, there's two attorneys up here that know how cases are to be filed in small claims court. You know, they can be filed in any small claims court in the county. They just choose ours. But we can't tell them which one to choose. We'll have to figure out a way to get around that.
I hate to do this, Mr. Mills. Would you mind coming up here? I swore I'd never do this, but I'm doing it. Would you mind, so the truancy issue changed with COVID, correct?
I mean, you could say that's one thing that, I mean, obviously that pushed everybody home for a while, and then people have adjusted since then.
So would you explain pre-COVID truancy issues in this county? How was it handled, and was it a big burden on the county attorney? Was it a big burden on the JP?
Well,
Help us out with this.
I mean, I can't speak to the JP work. I think they have more paperwork than we do. As far as our office, it really hasn't been a problem. This may be the calm before the storm with truancy, because I don't know what month it was, a couple months ago, a couple of their administrators came to our office, or came to a meeting. Judge Kelly was there, our office was there, and they're talking about trying to make a bit bigger push this next school year. And I'm talking JISD was the one at the meeting. So there may be a big uptick. I don't know what that's going to look like. It'll be 8 weeks into the school year before we really know how many cases new that there's going to be compared to previous years. But for our office perspective, it hasn't been a big deal up till now.
Ever?
Not since
You've been in office?
Right. I mean, you know, there's work to do, but it's not burdensome for us. But I mean, again, I think JP paperwork-wise is more paperwork than us. You can speak to that probably better than I can.
And the person that could really answer this question isn't in here, and that would be the head clerk that's been handling these for the past 11 years. There's just more paperwork involved in a truancy than there is, like I said, a small claim or a debt claim. Number one, how it comes to the office. It doesn't come in by e-file. It comes in by email. So basically, the information has to be taken off of an email. Forms have to be created. The information has to be put on those forms, and then it's sent across the office to him for review. And then they send them back to us, yes or no. And then we start the process of sending out notices. We send a constable out to serve them. And it's just like any other court case. But it's just the preparation to get to that point is what takes up most of the time on the front end. And then on the back end, we have court. So I put a kid on 30 school day probation. He has to take a course, do this, put mom on probation, this and that and the other. Well, it's not over. It's just like any other probation case, because now we have to wait till the 30 days is over, and then the school sends us the information on whether or not they completed their probation or whether or not they didn't. If they did, the case is dismissed. If they didn't, we have to have a whole another hearing again to find out why they didn't, and then to set other punishments. And it's just not your regular small claim or debt claim case.
And was that happening before COVID? All of that? I mean, 2017, 2018, 2019? How many?
Yes.
And GISD was processing truancy?
Yes.
And do we know a count of how many there were?
You caught me unprepared on
Sorry.
that. I have no idea.
Oh.
Well, if they were handling the truancy cases pre-COVID, which is what I'm hearing,
Right.
why are they not handling them now? And if we're going to handle them, they need to pay us to handle them.
Well, I don't think the procedure or process is different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's just from what they say, and it has to do with funding, and they have to have a certain percentage of the kids there on a daily basis in order to, and they're talking funding in the millions. They've got to hit 90-something% attendance. Okay, well, I don't know the number. Anyway, and they're in the low 90s now, and I can't remember all those facts and figures, but basically the gist of it is they need more kids there because there's a lot of funding that depends on it, plus just the general purposes of education and all that. So they've said that they're going to make a bigger push, but I don't think the process is going to be different.
Just more of it.
Just more of it is what we understand.
Because over time, the population in the school has, since 2017 to 2023-24, the population in the school district has grown.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the
They're
number
just
of kids that don't go to school now versus didn't go to school in 17, 18, 19. But do you charge the school district a fee for processing the truancies?
I don't think we can.
Okay.
That's a judicial question that I can't answer. I have no clue. But no, we don't charge. Never. I don't think they ever have. I wish we could.
I'm getting way out of my area of expertise, and I may be sticking my foot right in my mouth. But is there anything that we can do to put some of the data entry, instead of them sending an email listing all these things, is there something that we can do to make the data entry? They're having to put all these names and facts and figures and everything into an
I think they would have to have
email.
access to our computer system.
Do what?
I think they would have to have access to our computer system to do something like that.
For e-file, you need to have an attorney to
Well,
e-file it, and I
They
think...
don't have an attorney. That they don't
Right.
use an attorney. The individual schools, there's a representative at each individual school that sends us actually, I believe it all goes to admin, and then admin sends it to us.
So maybe we recommend they hire an attorney to streamline all this so it can be e-filed. That way you can charge them a fee, you can do the collections through the constable. All that paperwork is taken care of through e-filing.
That's something we can look at. I just know, and I wouldn't be asking for this third person if I didn't think the high school was going to kill us.
That's a strange way to put it.
Sorry. Hit us hard. We were at the high school a couple months ago for the Court of Appeals was there hearing a couple of cases, and everybody was going to see. And I was in the office, and there was one of the administrators was in the office, and I said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, we didn't get any truancies from y'all this last year?" And they said, "No, we didn't do anything." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." I said, "Well, what are your plans for next year?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to have to." And I said, "Okay, well, a question for you. If you had filed this last year, how many kids would there have been?" So she said, "Hang on a second, I'll be right back." She went in the office, she'd come back, and the number was 320 something. And I said, "Wow." And I said, "Would you be filing on the parents also?" And she said, "When it's appropriate, yes." So If they had filed last year, we would have had a minimum of an extra 320 some odd truancies to deal with, not including the parents' side of the case. So that's what I'm looking at. That's all I'm looking at. I'm just looking at having a lot more come in. They say they're going to do it, just having a lot more come in, and and I wished some of y'all would come by the office and actually speak to Tina Villa, and she could explain to y'all the actual process that truancy is and how much time it takes, because I'm just talking about what I see. Fortunately for me, I don't have to do the front-end paperwork. I help them with the back-end paperwork. I don't do the front-end paperwork. I just know what I see, and it's just an incredible amount of time and paperwork.
Jeff, there is a thwarting fee, say that 3 times.
Thwarting fee, thwarting fee, thwarting fee. Yes.
So some exchange of money goes on, I don't know how much.
We don't get it.
Well, it actually goes back to GISD, so that's another question. Why are you collecting it and sending it back and taking on that burden? We need to look into that.
Okay. So I hope I've helped y'all a little bit here.
Yeah, here's, and this is nothing against you at all. But here's the great irony of this. Today, and I've researched this with the school system, the public schools, since 1970, they've increased their per capita administrators per child by 7 times. In other words, there's 7 times more administrators in public schools per student than there was in 1970, which begs that question on the public school system: why do we need so many administrators? And they're getting money from the feds based on attendance that they stole from us in the first place. They've hired more administrators to do the paperwork, and then they want to send it over to the county, so we got to hire more people to do the truancy stuff, and the great circle of government life continues. And I'm sorry, I can't help but point that out, because they're talking about increasing their, going after truancy more because they've got administrators over there that need to do it, and then they're going to have us do the paperwork and run it through the legal system. Sure is strange to me.
Well, y'all have to remember, I walked into this January 1st, 6 months ago, and I'm trying to deal with it the best I can. Now,
I need to step on the judge, but can I give y'all a little history lesson so that you can kind of understand what's going on here? I was blessed that I never had to do truancy, but there's no such thing as truancy anymore. There's no such thing as truancy in the law anymore. It's truant behavior. It was changed in 2014 when they made truancy, which was a criminal act, a civil act, which is truant behavior. Now, it was always in JP2 with Judge Castillo, because he had always done it at that time, because when it was a criminal act, they had to have UAs when they came in for their court, and all of that stuff was left in that court because it was easier on the budget, okay? So when it was a criminal act, you could do something about them not going to school. Now it's truant behavior, and basically not taking away anything from anybody, but when it was changed to a civil action, basically all the judge can do is sit up there and go, "Boy, I sure wish you'd go to school." And you can, now the parent contributing is still a criminal act, so you can fine the parents. But in the end, there's not a lot you can do to the child for not going to school. And therefore, here we go. You got administrators up there going, "We ain't getting our check if we don't file some paperwork and get these kids back in school, so let's send them down there to the judge and see if he can make them go to school, because we can't and their parents can't."
The only enforcement we can do on kids is if
are old enough to get a driver's license, we can keep them from getting their driver's
Get on the mic, please.
On the students, if they're old enough, the only thing that we can do to them is, if they have a driver's license, we can take their driver's license, and if they don't have a driver's license, we can keep them from getting a driver's license. After they're found guilty twice, we can start to fine the kids. It's like $100 I think is the most you can do to the children. But Judge Hall is right. We don't have a lot of teeth. Basically what's happening is we're getting thrown under the bus to try to enforce the attendance for the school.
The school bus?
School bus. So I don't have any answers to a lot of y'all's questions other than that's just what the process is and what we're having to deal with.
That does, I mean, just commenting on what Commissioner Eagle said, it is kind of a vicious circle that, you know, we're at the end paying staff and time, your staff could be doing other things.
I won't disagree. But what do we do? Tell them we won't do it?
Yeah, and then in the end, it's to provide so that the school can collect more money from the state in taxes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and is it effective? It's
on some
at
kids
this
it
point,
is.
Right.
From what I've seen so far, since I've been here January 1st, we've done a little under 200 truancy cases for kids, and from what I gather from the school administrators, some of the kids straightened up. They understood because they saw mommy standing right next to them getting in trouble with them. You know, I don't know what happened when they got home, but so it has worked on some, and others will look you in the face and just tell you, I'm not going to school. So, I mean, it's just like any other court action. You're going to have some that it works, and you're going to have some that it doesn't. So, did you have something? You were looking at me.
Back to the personnel.
That's what my
now.
grandson
Go
says.
ahead.
You looked at me wrong. I didn't.
All right, so back to the personnel. Is putting another full-time person in the budget for speculation that this is going to increase, maybe not, is that where we need to be?
Well,
is it, or do we need to leave part-time money in the budget? And if it does come in, if this does pick up, if it does increase, bring in the help at that point?
Because, so my budget right now, the office budget right now is 2 full-time and 2 part-time. Right this minute, we have 2 full-time and 1 part-time. We have not hired another part-time person until we know where this is going to go, because I do not believe that it would be fair to hire a part-time person and then 3 months later and go, sorry, if you're not willing to go full-time, you got to go.
Right.
So we're hanging on. We don't know what we're going to do yet. So until y'all finalize the budget, we don't know whether we're going to hire part-time or whether we're going to hire full-time. Please remember, when I presented my budget a few weeks ago, I did say that if you hired another full-time person, that we would, or it would be what I wanted to do was to create a 2-tier system and not hire them in at the full-time pay, have like a step 2 down. So let's say the current clerk got her raise and she's up here, and she has 10 years experience, rather than hiring another clerk at the same amount of money with no experience, start her less and let her work her way up. And I would be giving up a part-time person and only have 1 part-time. So I would go from 2 full-time, 2 part-time to 3 full-time, one of them not making as much money as the other one, and 1 part-time. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it did.
So, I mean, we're at your mercy. It's whatever y'all decide is the best route to take. I understand the pie. If the high school does what they say they're going to do, we're going to have to figure something out, whether it to be dispersed or just get me a little more help.
If we disperse not only, the truancy cases, but, right now, each of the 4 JPs / constables got their own little bucket of nuts and bolts they deal with. If that's dispersed and we go back to everybody handling their business within their own precinct, is that going to level out some of the workload where some of the workload's high and some of the workload's low?
Well, it's all about the population of the precincts.
We just got through redefining that.
So to answer your question, as far as I know, if the populations between the precincts are even, then it should be pretty level across the board for the precincts. Now, demographics come into that. Certain areas are lower income, both parents work, or one parent works, you have a hard time getting kids to school, no school buses. I hear this a bunch in court from the parents. I'm sorry, I'm trying, but I'm a single parent and I have to get up and go to work and my kid's not getting on the bus, they won't get out of bed, this, that, and the other. Where another section of town, they have 2 parents, they have a school bus. It's a little bit easier to get little Johnny to school.
And I understand that, but I'm just saying, maybe we the court need to relook at the breaking up, this JP and this constable having, this bucket, somebody else having this bucket, and spread it out across.
You're talking about for the schools?
No, I'm talking about, the whole process.
Yeah, schools, hospital cases, the things that, auctions, there's certain specific things that each constable or JP does.
I know people will argue with me because there's all kinds of different interpretations of the law. But when it comes to people filing cases in JP court, it's their choice. It's not ours. So legally, we cannot tell. I can't tell Commissioner Wilson that he has to take his case somewhere else. If he wants to file it in my court, we have to accept it. The only exception is evictions. The evictions have to be filed within the precinct in which the property is located.
So we would have to go just ask somebody, that would be.
I don't even know
if you're saying that.
I don't even know. I don't even know if that's proper, but.
So we would have to ask the hospital and the school district, and then what about the auctions? I mean, are we saying we'd have the auctions go to 4 different constables as well? And even if we asked the school district and the hospital to split up their cases, there's no way to, they may still go to where they currently go because that's what they're comfortable doing.
We can't tell them what to do. Unfortunately, we cannot tell them what to do.
I'm wondering if you can request them to e-file instead of email.
They would just have to have access to the system.
Now, we had kind of, whenever I came in and talked to you guys, we kind of touched on that just a little bit, and whenever they do e-file, and Matt, you may have roll your eyes at me, that creates a case number, and the case may not be accepted.
When you accept it, it creates a case number.
Right. So if they e-file it, it creates a case number, and then it has to be disposed of if you're not going to take the case. Is that kind of where we are on that?
Once you accept it, it has to be disposed of in some form or fashion, whether it's dismissed by different means or cases rejected.
Right, and I guess what I'm asking is does that create a bunch of additional paperwork on the other side? Okay.
Well, I think we just need to find out just what the deal is. I know in Dallas County, I never did practice that much in JP courts, but it was my understanding that JP courts, if you take a small claims court or protective order or something of that nature, and you didn't live in the precinct to try to find, they looked it up and found out, and they wouldn't accept it, and they would send you to the correct JP in which you were. I mean, so I know it's been done, at least it was done in Dallas, but
They're getting away with it. I mean, the way they taught us, and I'm just telling you the way they taught us, they taught us, if somebody walks up to that window and hands you the paperwork, you take it.
as long as they lived in Hood County.
As long as they lived in Hood County, or as long as the case should be heard in Hood County, yes. Boom, you accept it. If later on, if later on it is determined that it does not belong here, that happens in a courtroom. But if they walk up to that window, you accept it, period. You don't go through the papers and go, I'm sorry, but it needs to go up the street. You accept it.
Well, that's something we can find out, isn't it, Mr. Mills?
Because when you're doing that, you're actually giving legal advice, which we cannot do. I know it's iffy, but that's the way we're taught. If there's something else there that we can deal with, that's fine. I'm just telling you what we were told in school.
Yeah.
Okay? You never turn down a case. And I even questioned an instructor in class one day because she started to hem-haw, and I said, wait a minute, you said we accept every case, and she said, Judge, you're right, we do. So, I don't know. And I'm sorry I've taken up so much time here.
Okay. Well, thank you. Did you have something you wanted to say? Yes. Constable, come on. Okay. Thank you for that, Judge. Appreciate it.
I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but we are the judicial system, not the school. We shouldn't allow the school to dictate how we're going to do this. And it can absolutely go to all the precincts. It can. We can tell them that's how we want them to do it. And they can do what we request, or the case can be dismissed. I don't know why we would leave this up to the school to decide how we are going to run, how y'all are going to decide how the county's going to be run. It can go to all the precincts, and we could all handle our own stuff. That seems to be streamlined for the county. It shouldn't matter if it's streamlined for the school. That's my opinion, for what it's worth, but I don't know that all of us in here trust all the decisions that the schools are making right now. Why can't we just, as a county, decide how we're going to conduct ourselves and how we're going to do business? We can't give legal advice. He's right. We can't turn it away, but we can instruct the schools to how we want to handle these cases so that we don't have to burden one department more than another. That's just my opinion, and I wanted to come up here and share it with you.
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, that's why I was making the point earlier that, yeah, it might streamline it for the schools, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for the county.
Hospital cases, same way.
Agree.
Send them to the defendant's precinct,
Agree.
but that's my opinion.
We're here to be fiduciarily responsible for the
And
county.
the judge can say, if you're not in this if the defendant's not in my precinct and you want to file it here, all right, good luck.
Just one thing on the hospital. Can you talk? Yeah. I'm sorry. We're looking at it from the opposite end. A lot of the cases that come in on the hospital, the people don't even live in this county. They just happen to visit the hospital that's located in Precinct 2 in this county. The reason they're all filed in Precinct 2 is because the hospital sits in Precinct 2. The action occurred at the hospital in Precinct 2. Therefore, that is the reason the hospital files in Precinct 2. We have people that lived in Plano, in Dallas, in Fort Worth, in Cleburne, in Glen Rose, in other states that get sued in our court. They get sued in our court because the hospital sits in Precinct 2, not because the person lives in a particular precinct or even in this county. So that's their madness to their method. Just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I think the venue is you can sue where the defendant resides too. That's the general basic on the thing. So they lived in Plano, so you could sue them in precinct 1, 2, 3, or 4, in my opinion. So I think, thank you. Okay, what's the next thing? I think we beat that to death pretty good. What's your next?
By one.
We can do that, or if the sheriff's office wants to come up and, since, I would say hit the ones that are here. Or are you ready to go? All right. Sheriff's on his way up, and that's,
Well, sorry to be the biggest burden on your tax dollars, but that's what keeping the citizens safe is all about, I guess, and it costs money. So, yeah, I asked for 14 positions, 6 deputies, 2 investigators, set the training coordinator position in stone because he's being paid out of the jail, 2 transport officers because of the amount of distances we're traveling back and forth to different jails, to court, all that. The court system is picking up the pace, but that means transporting more people back and forth to court. Animal control, the dispatchers, the call volume going up, and, we got to be able to answer those calls and get the fire, ambulance, and the law enforcement dispatch. So there's really not much wiggle room here. We've got, as the county grows, I've got to grow to be able to serve the public. And with back in 30, 40 years ago, if they would have done something different with the roads and bridges and things like that, when maybe they could afford it, it'd be easier to get around the city and the county. But yeah, they didn't. So it's gridlock in the city most times. So I've got to try to space out the deputies. And then the other big thing is, my operation is 24/7, 7 days a week. It's not just Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So people don't think about that, but stuff happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't let up. We have some times during the day and even during the night where things slack up, but then when we need people to get to somebody at a disturbance or, whatever the case is, you got to get them there. You got to be able to serve these people and protect these people, especially during disturbances and all of that. With talking to the guys and thinking about things, I asked for the investigators, and some people have said that maybe I got too many investigators, but everybody's welcome to come up there and see the caseload that we have on a day-to-day basis, the stack of cases that those guys are trying to work through. We've got, like, the street crimes listed as investigators, because that's what they do. They investigate crimes. They specialize in working the narcotics, just all different types of crimes out there that we have to focus on. We got to get a handle on it. We got to keep ahead of it. Just here a couple of weeks ago, they got 2 pounds of methamphetamine, along with other stuff, and guns, and just they're focusing on things. We've tried to do it different ways over my time as sheriff. This is working the best. These guys are getting results. They're getting things done, working with other agencies, taking care of business. So I can't, that's part of that with the investigators, but they got a job to do, and they're taking care of their cases too. If one thing that's big that takes up everybody's time is doing the background legwork on a lot of this stuff, analyzing things, putting things together. And what we were hoping for is being able to take, like, that racial profiling position that we have, that we're been phasing it out because it's all computerized. And that position pays, I don't know what it pays, but it is a little lower for sure than an investigator. But having that evolve into that analyst position, paying them a little bit more, and we can probably make it for a while longer without those 2 extra investigators. So that'll help. But, I know we've kicked around, well, who put these statistics together of how many officers you need to cover how many population, and the cities always have a lot more, and I think some of those are federal standards where the FBI set the bar on some of that stuff, and so there's nothing set really in stone for what do you do in rural Hood County, Texas. Well, rural is kind of going out the window, pushing to the west because it's getting more urbanized all the time. So, yeah, we've got so much stuff going on. This weekend is going to be probably wild and crazy, and so it mainly affects the city, but the city's in the county, so it's going to affect us. It's going to affect my jail. It's going to affect my people getting around, getting to respond to these calls. The summertime is always wild with the fights at the park, out at the dam. We have already a couple of those this year. That happens. They're out there in Precinct 3, and you got to get out there and help them. It involves mostly drunks, but it is what it is. We got to deal with it. You can't tell them, and a lot of them don't live in Hood County. Some do, some don't, but a lot of them come in, but you got to deal with it. So whether they're living in Hood County or passing through Hood County, we've got to deal with that stuff. So got to keep law and order. So yeah, that even if we had 6 more deputies, we need to figure out how we can keep moving ahead and get more someday. We can continue to try to get by, but the response times and things like that are going to have to suffer in some cases. My perfect thought would be to have 2 in a vehicle for officer safety, but also for the safety of the citizens, being able to respond to the calls, and then not bring another vehicle with another person out there to help with them so they can take care of their calls unless it's something really bad with shootings or stabbings or something like that where you need, and more people where you need all hands on deck. So perfect world for Hood County the way it is right now, I need about a dozen on a shift. I got 6 on a shift for patrols. So, and as the county grows, it's going to get more and more. Yeah, we're supposed to have a Toller City police chief, but we still don't. We've got a Lipan marshal that's in place, but that's not full-time, so we still deal with a lot of that. So Crescent we get up there all the time because of a lot of different things with drug activities, with traffic stops, wrecks, the pods. So as the county grows, more and more stuff goes on. And overall, since I was a deputy, I think there's been some things that have got better, but general population, there's still a lot of people to serve. So, it is what it is, I guess. So sorry to be the biggest tax burden, but it is what it is. We're public safety.
I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that we're behind, but I also think it's pretty safe to say that we can't eat all the elephant in one bite. So, I guess maybe, I think that they're going to have to, I don't think we're going to be able to do 14 employees. That's just my gut feeling. I don't see any way possible in the budget to make that happen. So I guess maybe one of the things we could ask you guys to do is there a pecking order? Is there, if it only comes to, X number of positions, we want these positions primarily. And that's, I think that it's going to take some time to right the ship. I think that's where we are. And
yeah, it should have started years ago.
Yes,
not just,
absolutely.
I would never want to be the judge and a commissioner to make these kind of decisions. It's a tough thing. It's tough being a sheriff and in law enforcement, dealing with all that out there, and we try to make do with what we can. Transport, we got to take more and more inmates all the time from here, there, and back again. So the deputies, I've got to do the best I can, and we got to keep moving forward. The training coordinator, we've got over 100 people we got to train, and our classes are always open up to anybody in the county, with fire marshal, constables, the DA investigators, any law enforcement. So we're trying to keep our people trained, but we can also train the others. So it's a full-time job. It's been getting that way for a long time, and
So are you going in the order? So you're saying the transport would be your number one?
Oh, I don't want to put you on the spot with that right this second. I mean, unless you're ready to do that, I thought
Well, I
maybe that would
just
be some.
gave in those 2 investigator spots to take them off there, if you'll make sure I get that analyst position in there, in a spot we've already got a full-time position. So it's just trading one for another and adding a little bit more money. And we'll give up those 2 spots. That's, I got to have everything else. So at this point, yeah, I'm not willing to prioritize. I got to, other than, I gave you 2 right there, so.
So when you go over the statistics that we went over when we were sitting with you, the number of the federal guidelines, the number of sworn officers per population, one of the things that occurred to me when I was kind of rehashing through this yesterday is we have other law enforcement officers in the county that weren't included. We have, including the constables and the deputy constables, there's 9. We're supposed to have more DPS troops, but we know that they're down at the border. So let's say we have 1 at any given time. We have game wardens. So if you add those together, we're not as far off as the numbers suggest. And the federal guidelines, again, are maybe not, like you said, maybe not exactly the same as what we need here. Not saying that we don't need additional officers, but just wanted to ask that, we have other sworn officers that are also in law enforcement that are protecting the county as well.
Oh, you betcha. So, yeah, now we're only down about 30 or 40. Anyway, did you have something?
Yes, sir. What a day to have this. So I've been with this county for 13 years, and I don't live here. This is what I call home, though. I cherish being here. I love being here. I love serving the citizens of Hood County. And I think that any citizen of Hood County that has had any involvement with me would tell you the exact same thing. This is the anniversary of a close friend that we lost, and there's a reason that we lost that friend, because evil exists in the world, okay? And because of manpower issues that the past courts have failed to give us, that officer showed up to a scene that should have never been on his own, and he got killed for it. And we all go every day and put on this badge and gun and know that that's a possibility. It's not something we have to accept, though. It's reasonable to find the means for what the sheriff is currently asking for. You ask any employee at the Hood County Sheriff's Office, and I'm just speaking for that. I'm not saying for all the other county offices. That's for them. I will just tell you for the Hood County Sheriff's Office and the deputies that are working the streets, you have no idea what it's like. No idea. The one closest to that would know would be Commissioner Wilson, because he's put on that gun and badge. For the rest, it's a new generation of being a cop. And for a municipality cop, your backup's right there. You'll show 6, 8 guys show up to a scene in the city every day. On our guys, you're showing up to domestics where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that aren't being cooperative, and you're put in a terrible situation. So all the sheriff's asking for is for us to start increasing our numbers. Again, those federal numbers that you're talking about, that's on the lowest of the low. I know Commissioner Andrews, we've talked about it before, and you were very shocked by the number of that being that 1.8. Again, it's not just off of population, it's off of call volume. Our guys go from call to call to call all day. You look at the mileage that we put on these cars, it's not from patrolling, it's from shagging calls all day, all night. Again, if you want to truly understand what it is, we've asked, come out and see what it looks like. Come out, see what it looks like. You'll understand very, very quickly. Talk to our employees, our bottom line, brand newest guys. It's never worked another agency, or some of the guys that's worked other agencies that come to work for us. And they're very pleased to be working here. And our turnover rate in the past has all been due to us not having those needs for them, whether it's pay, whether it's enough manpower for them to feel safe enough to go home to their families. And for anybody to say anything different than that, like I said, I just ask them to come out, see what it is that we do on a daily basis. I'm fighting for our guys because I've been there, currently there, and I know, like I said, it's a tough thing to do. Our guys saddle up, they show up by themselves day in, day out, and it's not something that is common in most other places. This county is built around a lake, so the majority of the population, as y'all know, it's in the county. So when we compare apples to apples, Hood County is a very unique county. I've studied a lot of counties, a lot of municipalities throughout the state, and Hood County has its own unique animal. So that's kind of my 2 cents on what the sheriff's asking for, and you know, how passionate the sheriff's office is and the employees are. You know, maybe take some time to seek out those guys and see if everyone's on the same page, and understand it, or giving you the same information that we're giving you here today.
Now, let me throw this in there. I can see that you're visibly upset. This is in absolutely no way anything derogatory towards you guys. I believe you're behind. I believe that, you know, I want safer streets. I want to live in a community that I don't have to worry about walking down the sidewalk. That is, and you guys do a remarkable job. There's absolutely nothing derogatory about this towards the sheriff's department at all. What I'm saying is, we've got 5 pounds of meat here and 15 pounds requested. Yeah. We have to figure out some way, and like I said, we can't eat the elephant all in one bite. You know, this is a progressing thing, and please don't think that any of this is in any way a slight at all. We are hemmed in and limited in what we can do, and we've got to make tough decisions about where we go from here.
Sure, I understand that completely. I appreciate that. What I mean by that is like I said, some of this stuff is prior to y'all, you know? Right. This court. I've been here with the county for 13 years, and our department has grown by 2 in 13 years. It's completely unacceptable, completely. And that's no fault on y'all at this point in time. But again, I hope that we can find a way to start making the agency correct with allocation of numbers, because as far as taking positions from one place and moving to the other, the reason those positions exist in other divisions is because they've been a need, not you know, it's not just been a wish of, oh, well, let's create this now, let's do this just because, oh, it'll be cool to do. You know, there's been a need for something, and we've had to allocate positions for stuff. Like with street crimes. I mean, those guys, we got to a point where proactivity for our patrol guys was coming down. Being able to not just run call to call to call. There was no way to go in. I can take street crimes now and say, hey, we've got this drug problem over here. Hey, we've got simple problems. We've got speeders over here in this school zone, but I can't get patrol in there because they're running from call to call. I need y'all to go take care of that. Go over there and run some traffic in that school zone. So they're a unit that I'm able to utilize for just that. And so everything that we have within the sheriff's office, like I said, there's been a need for it as we've grown or you know, the years have gone on. And you know, it's just, I listen to our employees, and that's what I'm passionate about. I'm not upset with the court at all. I'm just passionate because I'm in touch with our employees, and they talk, and they say, this is what we're doing, and I see it. I see it on them, I see it on us, statistics, you know, calls, whatever it may be. I mean, we see the whole picture, and it's no fault to y'all. You know, you're not in the sheriff's office, but the information that we're giving you, that's what you'll have to rely on, and you know, we've asked or answered a lot of questions over the past year or however long. More than happy to answer any other questions, but again.
Let me ask you this: did I understand you correctly to say that when you started 13 years ago, and right now there's only been 2 additional sheriff's personnel added?
Peace officers.
Officers.
When I started, there was 6 people on a shift, and when the sheriff tells y'all there's 6 on a shift, again, because of comp time, of how much comp we acquire, and that's not because the overlap in shifts, it's because we get comp time for court, we get comp time for, all these different reasons. If you're in a specialized unit, that we've got to have SWAT, we've got to have dive team to get, stolen articles, bodies, whatever it may be out of lakes, because sheriff has the only entity in the county that has a dive team. The BRA, they don't have their own dive. The game wardens, they have a dive team, but it's not a local dive team. They'd have to call hours away. So the sheriff's office is the one that responds to those things and takes them out. So there's comp time that's gained by all that. So getting back to where I was going, we're setting most days at 4 people running this whole county for patrol. And then you'll have administrators, you'll have your street crimes guys that are still having to jump in there and take calls to help just get through with the things. Because again, the workforce within the sheriff's office has not continued to grow as the sheriff's asked for it. Again, it's no fault to y'all in the past, but that's why when the sheriff's saying, hey, he's willing to give up 2 investigator positions, in my eyes, that's huge, because the numbers that we are asking for this year aren't to get us to what we need to continue to be operational today. That's just to start at getting us where we need to be today. That doesn't fix our problems. So that's kind of my 2 cents in it. Like I said, if I came across to anybody I was attacking or upset with our court, I'm not upset with our court at all. It's just passionate about facts. And there's a lot of things that get out there on social media and stuff. And again, they're people's opinions on the matters, and they don't know the true facts.
Yeah, just passionate about what you do. And you guys put your lives on the line every day, so you should be passionate about that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And, Judge, to answer your question, 15 years ago, there was hired security staff here in the law enforcement, or in the Justice Center, and that transitioned over to deputies in here, and then that's under me, and we've had, people change. So we had 4 people in here. We absorbed 1 into patrol just to add more people in there. And at one time I even had some SROs, but that was just kind of a trade-off, and they've come and they've gone. Lieutenant Siegler was an SRO back in the day that I appointed him to do that, and he's doing a fantastic job as taking care of the commissary and overseeing security down here and the bail bond, all that. So I couldn't make it without him. He's doing a great job. But yeah, we've gained 4 spots basically because we've absorbed a couple of things over the years. Yeah, we have not really grown, so it is what it is.
Does that include everything? So when we say sheriff's department, we're talking about animal control, admin, dispatch, all of the different functions. So if you look back at all of those departments or sections of your budget over the last 15 years, do we know what that count is? So I'm not sure. When you were saying 2, you mean patrol deputies, peace officers?
Peace officers, yeah.
How can we?
These guys are peace officers, but one's a captain and one's a lieutenant. And then we got deputies out on the street. They're peace officers. But yeah, in 15 years, I've got 4 people because of the way they've been absorbed around the county. So otherwise, animal control hadn't grown, and we've taken 1 away from up here. So we have to come down and help out with lunch times and courts and things. Talk about increasing things with the street crimes, then like the mental health stuff is gone from, we dealt with a mental once in a while 15 years ago. Now, the other day we had 4 before 6 o'clock in the afternoon going to mental hospitals, and had one just got dropped off in Wichita Falls, and his Tahoe broke down. So I had to pay $925 out of my forfeiture money just to get him back in that vehicle back. Chief Smith said, well, we can take it to a shop up there. And I said, then we'd have to get 3 quotes and $400 tow bill here, $400 tow bill here, $400 over here or something. And then dealing with something long distance, I said, let's just get him back and we'll get it fixed down here. But the mentals, a slow day is 1 or 2, but a busy day is 5 or 6 a day, and that's not just running them to the hospital, that's running them to Wichita Falls or Abilene or something like that. Most of the time it's Wichita Falls. So we've got that, and we've got those 2 guys taken out of patrol so they can deal with that, because that ties up a deputy for hours a lot of times when they're sitting with a suicidal person and trying to calm him down, get him the help he needs, and move on. So we've been able to take that out of patrol so they can keep on doing their job. So we've added different things, the street crimes, the mental health. We've added so much stuff because it's a need that has to be done out there. But I can't neglect and take away from patrol any longer. We've got to keep building that up. So.
I just want to touch on what he's talking about, giving back the 2 investigator spots, and that's a decision that I was okay with as running the criminal investigations unit, and I'm sure my guys are watching this and listening to it and pretty pissed that I'm saying that I'm going to give 2 spots up if we can get a crime scene tech and analyst position. We're probably one of the only agencies that doesn't have that position at this point, but my goal is I can take some of the load, whether it be fingerprint processing or blood splatter analysis or forensic photography or aerial photography or any of these number of specialty things, whether it's just everybody has a video camera nowadays on their business and somebody has to go collect all that data. Somebody has to analyze all that data, download that data, and put it into a file where it can be investigated and reviewed. So if I can get this auxiliary type person and not get 2 more investigators, I can take a lot of the work off the investigators I do have and put it on this other individual that can help those investigators be more efficient. So that's what we're talking about. And as far as the passion and the frustration goes, I think I kind of share the same passion that Captain Berry does and the sheriff does. It's very difficult to do all this work and make these presentations like I have since last November, and then to listen to people tell me who have never been a police officer how many people I need to do my job. I couldn't tell you how many people you need to run a restaurant. Couldn't tell you how many people you need to fight a fire because I've never fought a fire. I don't have an idea. But I do know what it takes to be a cop, and I do know what you need to run a law enforcement division, and we're telling you the numbers, not because we just want them, it's because we need them. So I just ask you, you haven't been in our shoes, so please listen to the experts that are telling you what we need. Thank you.
I'd like to just throw in one other thing up here. And we go back 15 years ago to what it is right now. It's the overall hostility, maybe not so much right now in Hood County, but all over the nation. And we got people coming in here all the time too. And you just never know when this hostility is going to boil over. And that's a different whole atmosphere in here. I know when Dominic Inge bought these 19 ballistic bulletproof vests, and I told her, I said, well, I'd like to tell the people of Hood County what you've done for doing this. And she says, well, Ron, I did it to protect our police officers, not for any public recognition. And I said, but I'd like to tell everybody because it will tell everybody what you know, and that's what she said. She says the overall hostility and the hostile environment that we send these police officers in, combined with everything else, the population explosion, and wanting and expecting the sheriff's office to provide the same level of safety that y'all have always been able to do with the same amount of men is just not possible. I mean, I don't know about cutting staffing anyplace else, like what you were saying, that maybe the iPhones can do something, then you need somebody. I think it's a good idea from what I'm hearing now is to make that racial profilist an analyst, give him or her a bump in salary to do that, and then get the investigators, but get some more patrolmen out on the street. That's what I think, because everybody in this county, let's face it, what our primary duty is to protect all the citizens of Hood County. That's number one. If you don't have law and order, you don't have a county, period. That's first. So I think y'all do an excellent job, and I like the way that y'all all work with other agencies. You know, that sheriff and I have talked about that many times. Before you took office, there was really no trust between the Federal Marshal Service, the Texas Rangers, or anybody else, every department, you remember that too. There was nobody trusted, and everybody has really gotten together to really work together and helping out, and that's what makes Hood County so important. So safety, in my opinion, is number one that we got to do. Take some of these other, and this is, like you said, this is 24/7. The rest of our jobs, kind of, except maybe the justices, JP's back there, you know, you can kind of, you know, end it, except when you're on call, when you're going to have to be called out for death or whatever. But y'all are around the clock all the time, 24/7. And this long weekend, starting tomorrow, where all these vendors come up here, from here until July the 5th, starting really today, because they're setting up there at the courthouse, it's going to be a madhouse here in Hood County.
Yeah.
So y'all do a great job. So I think we owe it to the citizens to provide the adequate personnel and staffing and the best automobiles and personal protection that we can give to y'all. I mean, we just do owe that to the law enforcement and first responders. That's kind of the way I look at it and how I'm going to approach the budget from my perspective. So.
Yeah, over the years, like when Chief Smith and I were deputies in the 90s, you know, in the courtroom on the witness stand, you know, they took your word for it, and you could get these people testify to what they did wrong and get them prison time. But now the modern technology is supposed to make your life easier with all the computers and all kinds of stuff like that. Well, we got to have a computer in the car. Then if you don't have a camera to video it, then it didn't really happen. Even if a peace officer said, hey, I swear this happened, I was there, I arrested him, they don't care. You got to have video proof of it. And so we've got body cameras. I was the first one in the county to get the body cameras and get those going. We've had them for a number of years. And so the technology creates workload for IT people, for the clerks to download that stuff, get it to the prosecutors. So there's videos off of that, videos off the car cameras, off the body cameras, just so much stuff going on. And then the reports used to be like in the days with Jerry East, you know, he'd be sitting there with his steno pad and he'd be writing out a report while he's talking to the person, and I don't know half the time if he's really listening real close. He's mainly just writing his report. So you get back in the car, he'd tear it off and be done and put it in the box for the clerk to do. Well, you know, that day is over. You got to go back and type it in. And it's not just a type in the narrative. You got a whole lot of stuff that goes along with it. We're trying to get it patrol streamlined to help with the book-in process too, because things just take too long. So we're working on that. So these guys got so much work to do. All my employees have so much work to do, and the workload just keeps going up and up and up. And I've talked about having you guys come out and ride out or something. That made me think we had James Deaver. He came out on a SWAT call one day, and he was kind of looking forward to seeing what was going on. About the time that flashbang went off, he was ready to head to the house. But my guys went in that door and did their job. And then Commissioner Berry, he went out to Oak Trail Shores with me, and this is even back in the day when I was a fire marshal, and we're arresting a guy that was a little bit bigger than John, and tattoos all over the place, and arrested him for an arson deal, and got the guy in handcuffs, had to double handcuff him because he was so big, and put him in the car. And I looked around and thought, where's Commissioner Berry? He was hiding behind the car. He never did that ever again. And we were taking care of the business, so it's a different world out there with what we have to deal with. So you're welcome to come anytime. So anyway, sorry I got long-winded.
Okay.
But we're here to serve and protect and do what we have to do. And we've done it.
Okay. You know, for the record, I would suggest to the other members of the court, if you are so concerned about the budget, maybe we, the commissioners, should forego our proposed raises and use those funds to assist the sheriff's department. I, for one, am willing to step up and do that. Period.
I will do it too.
I agree with you, Commissioner.
If there's a way that we can, I thought about this before, but was told that we couldn't freeze ours without freezing all the,
Give back any or all of your salary at any time back to the county per statute.
sure, I would go for that. I was going to suggest that myself, but
I am
Thank
too.
you.
I'm in on that too.
Sure. And me too, there's 6 right there, so 6 raises, so I can't speak for the rest, but thank you.
You bet. That's important.
Thank you for your time. Call me anytime if you got any questions, so.
You'll do a good job. I know Lance McLean was I remember that day so well, and we still remember that day. That was tremendous loss up there. And like Captain Barry said on the deal, should have been 2 guys out there all along up there. And of course, you came up there and gave Lance and Hood County justice that day. I do know that and remember that. So y'all do put yourselves on the line, so. And I see Steve Smith back there, who Lance was more of a brother to him, like he was to almost everybody else on the force. So anyway, we need to protect y'all and y'all protect us. That's it. So, thank you, Sheriff. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, John. Okay. What else?
Donna, you want to come up and talk? Did you ask for a couple of, yes. Did you ask for a couple new positions?
I did ask for 2.
Would you like to?
Because the caseload has skyrocketed, and I think everybody, can you talk at the mic?
Do you want to come up and speak on that? Good on that.
do you have any statistics to show what the caseload's been for the last year? How a trend chart to help us understand when you say the caseload is increased, do you have a trend chart to show how many cases per clerk? Or?
I do. My IT guys been out 2 weeks in the hospital. I didn't have it in the record
Okay.
to present, but I do have those figures as far as the district court goes.
Okay, going back for 2 years, or what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I could do it for as many years.
Yeah, if you would do that for the last 2 years, and then what you think the projections are and what that's based on, that would be great. Can we take a break? I move for a break.
Anybody else want to say anything, or? Perhaps we should.
Have anything else?
Are we going to go into,
Yeah, were we going to go talk about salaries and some of these individual situations?
I mean,
Okay.
now's as good a time as any, we're all here.
Probably done with this portion, and then just do the executive session and be done.
Back room is ready if you want to go back there.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson, for making that proposal. I think it's a great idea. I was for it the last 2 years, as I stood out there and said, let's freeze salaries for the commissioners. Going to,
Do what? You ready to go?
Executive session?
Okay, we're going to, it's now 10 minutes to 11. We're going to adjourn into executive session, talk about personnel matters, salaries. It's 12:28. We're back from executive session. No action was taken, and this workshop is hereby adjourned. Thank y'all very much.